Today I'm visiting the town of San Antonio Palopó. Getting to San Antonio Palopó from San Marcos La Laguna is just as complicated as getting to Santiago Atitlán. First, you take a lancha to Panajachel. That part is a given. However, when I arrived in Panajachel, I assumed I would take another lancha to San Antonio Palopó, just like the trip to Santiago Atitlán. I expected to pay 25 quetzales up front and sit around waiting for the boat to fill up. I stood at the dock, watching the clock tick. But as it turns out, a lancha from Panajachel to San Antonio Palopó simply doesn't exist. Because, of course, that would make too much sense. Instead, to get to San Antonio Palopó from Panajachel, you have to take a tuk-tuk, a car, or hire a private boat. I attempted to secure a rideshare in Panajachel, but the options were few and far between. Of the limited choices available, one driver agreed through the app, only to demand an additional 100 quetzales in person, above the fare already confirmed. The unexpected request felt unsettling and compromised my sense of safety, so I declined the ride. Eventually, I flagged down a tuk-tuk. The driver quoted me 100 quetzales, about $13. I probably could have negotiated, but in the moment, I didn't even think about it. The journey was slow and winding. Much like the journey to Lake Atitlán itself, the road clings to the mountainside, snaking its way along dramatic slopes. There were a few moments when I honestly wasn't sure the tuk-tuk was going to make it, either up the steep hills or around the sharper bends. But somehow, it always did. I leaned back and tried to enjoy the ride. Through gaps in the fences, trees, and thick underbrush, panoramic views of Lake Atitlán would flash into sight, framed by the towering volcanoes and the colorful villages scattered along the shore. Trees arched overhead, casting patches of shade on the road, and brilliant flowers in every imaginable color bloomed along the way. The town's name, San Antonio Palopó, is a blend of Spanish and indigenous roots. San Antonio for Saint Anthony, and Palopó, an indigenous word meaning a mate tree, a type of ficus. At one time, the Mayans used the bark of the amate tree to create a form of paper, a tradition as ancient as the hills surrounding the lake. As we neared San Antonio Palopó, the village came into view. A cascade of white and blue painted buildings spilling down the hillside toward the water, as if the whole town had been carefully airbrushed into place. As we arrive in the town, a gentler rhythm of life begins to reveal itself, one shaped by the quiet routines of a village untouched by haste. It feels as though only locals dwell here, their days unhurried, their presence unassuming. Though San Antonio Palopó has begun to draw attention, it remains largely undiscovered by tourists, a fact perhaps reflected in the absence of public boat routes. I find myself grateful for this peaceful shift, a welcome pause in the journey. Whenever I start off in a town, I like to go to the Mirador. What's interesting here is that the Mirador is not at the top of the town, it's at the bottom by the lake. Although it isn't officially labeled as one, San Antonio Palopó has its own malecón, a stone-built embankment running along the lakefront, perfect for strolling and pausing to take in the view. It's shaded by trees and lined with vibrant, colorful flowers that seem to dance in the breeze. A familiar and comforting sight here, as in many parts of Lake Atitlán, is the presence of Mayan women by the water's edge, washing clothes by hand, dressed in their beautiful, traditional clothing. A living rhythm that feels timeless. From the Malecón, two long docks stretch out over the calm, glassy water, offering even better views of the lake and the village that climbs the hillside. In this quiet spot, the water barely ripples, creating a mirror for the sky and surrounding mountains. From the Mirador, I decided to walk uphill toward the church. The path is a winding incline, paved with uneven gray cobblestones, bordered by low stone walls built from the same rough gray stones. The way up feels both ancient and enduring, a slow climb leading deeper into the heart of the village. Now I am standing looking at a beautiful, beautiful church. Atop a gentle hill, overlooking the quiet village below, La Iglesia de San Antonio de Padua watches over San Antonio Palopó with quiet grace. From its perch, the views of Lake Atitlán stretch out like a painted horizon, serene, expansive, and deeply still. Here, time seems to slow, inviting visitors to pause, breathe, and simply be. In front of the church, a modest lookout crowned by a small white cross offers a place for reflection. Built in the colonial style, the church is adorned yet dignified, approached by a set of gray stone steps worn smooth by generations of quiet footsteps. Its facade, painted in the same crisp white as the cross, evokes a sense of purity and simplicity. Inside, the red tiled floor warms the space with its earthen tones, while wooden pews in a soft, natural finish line the nave. The white walls are adorned with humble effigies of Christ and the saints, standing in quiet testimony to the town's enduring faith. At the heart of the sanctuary, the altar blooms with colorful flowers and flickering candles, all gathered around a gilded armoire, housing a statue of the town's patron saint, Saint Anthony of Padua. Saint Anthony, a 13th century monk who journeyed from the Augustinian to the Franciscan order, is remembered for his eloquence and deep compassion. One enduring legend tells of a beloved book of Psalms stolen from him and miraculously returned after he prayed for its recovery. Today, he is the saint to whom people turn when seeking what is lost, whether objects or souls. He is often depicted cradling the Christ child, a symbol of divine intimacy and gentle wisdom, just as he is here, quietly blessing the village that bears his name. I came to San Antonio Palopó for its renowned blue and white pottery, which is specific to the Kaqchikel community and to San Antonio Palopó. It is blue both for the lake as well as the sky. Guatemala lies along the volatile edge of the Ring of Fire, where volcanic forces have shaped not only its dramatic landscapes, but also its rich natural resources. Among them is a distinctive clay born of ancient eruptions, mineral-rich and fine in texture. Long before the arrival of the Spanish, the Mayans harnessed its qualities to craft ceramics, blending artistry with the elemental power of the earth. Revered for its purifying properties, today you can use this volcanic clay as a natural skin clarifier. Ken Edwards was a famous ceramicist from the United States. He fought in World War II and eventually ended up in Mexico, where he founded a ceramics company. He installed the first high-temperature kiln. This is widely known, and his brand is internationally recognized. What many people may not realize is that in the 1990s, Edwards arrived in San Antonio Palopó, drawn by his search for the perfect clay. At the time, Guatemala was still reeling from the scars of a brutal civil war that had spanned over 3 decades, leaving much of the country, including this lakeside village, burdened by poverty and uncertainty. Yet, amid the hardship, Edwards found something extraordinary. He fell in love with the soul of Guatemala, the majesty of Lake Atitlán, and the quiet resilience of San Antonio Palopó. Captivated by its spirit and natural beauty, he made the town his home for several years and founded a pottery workshop that would blend local tradition with artistic innovation, sowing seeds of craftsmanship and hope. He taught what he knew to the locals, specifically how to produce ceramics using high-firing techniques that burn out lead. San Antonio pottery today is lead-free as well as dishwasher and microwave safe because of Edwards. Even though he would eventually leave San Antonio Palopó, and he died, unfortunately, a few years ago, his legacy here remains. The distinctive pottery of San Antonio Palopó is known around the world as Maya K, a name that, I can only assume, honors both the ancient Mayan people and the artist who helped bring this tradition to international attention, Ken Edwards. Today, 4 ceramic workshops in the village continue to produce Maya K pottery, each carrying forward a legacy of artistry and cultural fusion. I set out to find one of them, expecting it to be a simple task. After all, how hard could it be? As it turned out, much harder than I thought. I wandered without luck until a young woman noticed my struggle and kindly offered to guide me.
¿Qué país?
A los Estados Unidos.
Oh,
Sí.
muy bonita usted. ¿Primera vez acá?
Ah, sí.
Sí.
We began descending into an area I wouldn't have dared enter on my own. Narrow alleyways, quiet and unfamiliar. A flicker of unease began to set in.
Oh my God.
Por aquí.
Then, as if by magic, a workshop appeared before us, tucked away, almost hidden. I wasn't permitted to film the artisans at work, but I was allowed to capture the beauty of the finished pieces on display. Each item is hand-painted, most in the iconic palette of rich blue and soft white. No two pieces are exactly alike. Each brushstroke carries the imprint of the maker's hand. One recurring motif is a delicate, teardrop-shaped pattern, simple yet elegant in its repetition. The shelves were filled with charm. Every piece was a small treasure, making the decision nearly impossible. After much deliberation, I finally chose 3.
Todo es muy bonito.
Sí, sí. Tinda de isla, ¿no?
Abi kom ska vi se jävligt
Marre.
ورا تاني كان اخر بس كيش دخل شغل ما هذا تام لا يلبن ما قد دخلت بالخمسة نكش كذا بكم تقعد نسيت كلها
Marre.
وشي كنت خمسة كويا
Mejor.
Es muy difícil, pero
Sí.
me gusta.
sí
Muchas gracias. Gracias a usted.
Here's what's coming home with me. From its hidden pottery workshops to its serene lakeside mirador and graceful colonial church, San Antonio Palopó offered more than I anticipated. A slower rhythm, a deeper stillness, and a story etched in clay and stone. San Antonio Palopó may be off the beaten path, but that's exactly what makes it worth the effort. Stay curious, be inspired, find freedom, wander elsewhere. I'll see you in the next one. Would you visit San Antonio Palopó? Comment below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell me your thoughts. Leave a comment or respond to the prompt below.